Come on. What's up, my friend? Abby here, and welcome back to another episode of Writer's Life Wednesdays. In case you haven't noticed, it's October, otherwise known as Preptober for us crazy writers who decide to take on NaNoWriMo and write an entire novel in the month of November. This is our time to prepare ourselves, literally, mentally, emotionally. So that's why today I'm gonna kind of take you behind the scenes and show you my preparation process for next month when I will sit down and write an entire novel.
I got no switch off button when it comes to thinking of you. I got no switch off button what to do. It's like my brain's been bogged down. I'm only thinking of you. It's like my brain's been bogged down what to do. I'm in the kitchen thinking about you. I'm in the shower thinking about you. I'm on the bus, on the bike, I'm on the boat, I'm on the train thinking about you. I'm at the movies thinking about you. I'm in my car thinking about you. I'm at the mall, I'm in the bed, I'm in the bar, I'm on the plane thinking about you.
Okay, so first of all, I don't start preparing in October. I'm kind of preparing throughout the year. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a major plotter, so anytime I get a fragment of an idea, I write it down, and I write down every single idea I possibly have, but I don't start like organizing stuff until a few months before NaNoWriMo, or before I'm gonna write the novel. Until then, everything is just kind of smashed together in a document in my Scrivener file for that book, and is probably labeled something like mess, or notes, or help, I have serious issues. I promise I'm a professional writer. But these are just rough ideas, half of which get thrown away and or improved upon. I decide who my protagonist is gonna be and what kind of journey I want her to go on, and then I decide what plot points I want to keep based on what serves that story. If you want to see exactly how I develop my characters, the most important part of storytelling, go check out this series that I just made, a video series on my channel. It is awesome, if I do say so myself. Okay, so next I sort my plot into a 3-act story structure. So I just recently started doing the 3-act story structure because it clicked with me when I saw it. And it just feels very natural and organized and nice, and so many of my favorite stories follow this story structure, so I'm like, how can I not? Sometimes I'll rearrange things a tiny bit because I don't like to fit in a box. Heyo! And I don't think that story structure is that important that the whole thing crumbles if your first pinch point happens before or after the end of Act 1. Write good characters and nobody will notice. Next, I write a short outline, and by short I mean anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 words. This is basically start to finish everything that happens in chronological order. I basically just copy and paste the filled out story structure and then delete the headers and add more specific scenes. So this is the outline that I read to my sister to get her opinion on the story. Yeah, she gets all the spoilers. By the way, she's an awesome published author herself. Go check out her channel, link in description below. After that, I write a long outline. This one gets really specific, down to nuanced emotions and bits of dialogue that I don't want to forget. This is the outline where nothing is left out, nothing can be fuzzy. I have to know exactly what happens. And that's why this outline usually ends up being 15,000 to 20,000 words long. Yep. You heard that right. I know it sounds kind of extra, but this is the only way I can write a book in 1 month. I have to know exactly what happens before I write it. I have to know the cause and effect of each scene and why it matters and how it changes my characters along the way. Finally, I create scene cards for every single scene. I used to do just chapter outlines where everything was just kind of smashed together and cluttered, but I recently found a much better, much more organized way to do this by reading Lisa Cron's brilliant book, Story Genius. I usually hate methodical writing procedures, but these scene cards she talks about are actually genius. Basically, you need to know 4 things about a scene. what happens, why it matters, the consequence, and the realization. And then you need an "and so" to set the next scene in motion. What happens and the consequence are the plot. Why it matters and the realization are the story, the conflict that's happening inside our protagonist. So that's how the scene card works, and it's really awesome because it really allows you to like uncover what really matters in the story, which is what's going on inside the characters. The internal journey, the internal conflict. Yeah! So I'm not gonna get super into scene cards right now, but I might talk about them in a future video, and if you want to see a video like that, smash that like button to let me know. Moving on. Once I have all my scene cards laid out in the proper order, I'm ready to write. For this book, I'm probably gonna have a slightly different style. I might not do chapters, more like scenes or short chapters. I don't really know yet. The style part kind of comes as I write. That's the only thing I'm a pantser in. Finally, the last thing to consider is research. That horrible word. If I need to know anything specific, be that historical, medical, scientific, mechanical, whatever, I'll research just enough to get by while I'm writing my long outline. Because if I over-research, then I tend to just keep including all this information that you don't need to know just because I can. It's like trivia or something. Oh, look at this fun fact I just learned about science or history. Oh, I could include that historical event. I can include this scientific detail. I'm such a nerd that it gets out of control. And I have a rule that I absolutely positively do not research while I'm writing because that will slow you down like nothing else. So hopefully with my little bit of research, I have enough to muddle through the first draft, but if I'm not sure about something, I'll just write a note to myself in the manuscript to fact check it later. After I'm finished writing all my outlines and scene cards, I set the whole project aside for at least a day or two before Nano begins to clear my head and get back to the beginning of the book. That way I just arrive at page 1 and my first scene card is like my first little assignment to complete. That might sound so horrible and boring to you, like, oh my gosh, how can you even have fun writing? But everybody has a different creative process. This is mine. I know it sounds like really hyper organized and crazy, but that's kind of how my whole life is. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. I like to make soundtracks for my books. When I'm in the outlining process, I'll create a super long playlist of music, mostly instrumentals, sometimes songs with lyrics mixed in, of songs that match scenes that I'm writing. This just helps me to properly set the mood so that when I sit down to write that particular scene, I have a whole soundtrack that goes with it. And I even get so extra as to make a list of all these songs in my Scrivener file and rename all the tracks as to what I would call them if they were actual tracks in the soundtrack of my book turned movie. I know, that probably sounds insane, but it's actually really fun. So there you have it, my friend. That is my preparation process for NaNoWriMo. I'm super pumped to dive into this novel, and if you're like, what is the novel even about? Let's just say it's a genre I've never written before. Usually I write happy, sad, contemporary romance comedy, but this one takes place in the future. And there is almost nothing lighthearted about it. This is new for me. It's gonna be interesting, but I'm not gonna tell you any more about it until, of course, the end of November when I'll post a big giant NaNoWriMo celebration on my blog. That post will include snippets from the novel and aesthetics and a Pinterest board and confetti and a playlist and all kinds of good stuff. I did this last year and it was so much fun. So I'm totally gonna do it again. All right, my friend, time for you to talk to me. Are you doing NaNoWriMo this year? How do you prepare for it? Is your October going to be as crazy as mine? Let's chat about all the novel writing craziness in the comments below. Smash that like button if you like this video and be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already because I post writing videos every Wednesday and it's always something inspiring or fun or helpful and I just love to have you here. Dream big, stay invincible, and rock on.
I got no switch off button when it comes to thinking of you. I got no switch off button what to do. It's like my brain's